Thanks for joining us for Makerspace. As usual, we've got a small activity for you to start with, and then I'll be back with our activity for today. So we're starting off with a STEAM brain teaser. A young boy lives on the 10th floor of a 10-story apartment building. Each morning he rides the elevator down from the 10th floor to the first floor and goes to school. When he comes home from school, he gets on the elevator, rides to the 5th floor, and then walks the final 5 sets of stairs to the 10th floor. Why? Press pause and have a think about it. Why? He is only tall enough to reach the button for the 5th floor. The higher number buttons are out of his reach. Okay, so our activity today is to make a wind meter, and that is called an anemometer. So hopefully they are things, or the things that we need will be things that you have around the house, or perhaps you can plan to get and make our activity tomorrow. Of course, our activities stay on our Facebook page, and you can access them on our website at future time as well as on the YouTube channel, so just search for us there as well. Okay, so I'm going to do a summary of everything that you need just at the end of this, but I'm just going to show you what we need to start with. We need a couple of ruler length pieces, and probably width as well, pieces of corrugated cardboard. We've got 2 options for making the spinning piece of our anemometer. One option is going to be a dowel and the top of a pen. So I guess you'll need to ask a parent or an adult if you can take a pen apart and use the top of a pen. But that is what we're going to use there. It's just the plastic part and where it's rounded at the top. So not the end, but the top bit. Our wooden dowel, and we need a push pin. The other option that we're going to use is going to just include, so instead of the dowel and the pen, we're going to use a pencil which has a rubber in the end. So it doesn't matter if it's sharpened or not. All right, for our base for our anemometer, we're going to have a couple of options, and we might have time to show these to you. One option I'm going to use is using a steel can and some gaffer tape, and I've double-sided the gaffer tape and put a hole in that, but we'll go through that. And you will also need 4 to 5 cups. Now 4 cups is essential, the last cup not necessarily, and fantastic if you've got 1 cup that is slightly different but the same size as your other cups, and we'll demonstrate why. The other thing that you can do is just to do some colouring around one of the cups, and it will all make sense in the end. But what we're going to try and achieve is to not make any of the cups any heavier than the other. Okay, other thing to point out is that it doesn't matter what kind of cup you have. Obviously we're not using glass today because we're going to be attaching things, so paper cup or plastic cup will be fine as well. Okay, so let's make a start after we give you just another quick run through of the items that we used today. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so if you've managed to get some items together, that's fantastic. Again, if you need to pause, if you need to come back, no problem at all. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a cross with our pieces of cardboard. And I'm going to get out of the frame at the moment, and we're going to do this directly for you on the bench. So we've got our corrugated cardboard. As I said before, it's about the width and the length of a ruler. It won't matter if the dimensions are not exact. So all we're going to do is we're going to cross them over, and we're going to staple them together. And I'm making my staples not exactly in the center. There we go. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach our cups around the outside. The cups all have to be facing the same direction. Okay, so in this case I've actually got a paper cup that looks slightly different than the other ones. So I'm attaching that now. What you'll need to do is to decorate one of the cups so it's slightly different. When the anemometer is spinning around, you want to be able to clearly see your different cup, because that's what our measurements will be taken from. Okay, so I said we had a couple of options for elevating our anemometer, and this particular one I'm just going to use the dowel and the pen lid. So I'm going to slip the pen lid over the top of the dowel. And then in this example, I'm going to use our tin and I'm going to put this in there. And what I think I'm going to have to do is to keep that steady, I'm actually going to put some weight around the dowel. Can you see that there? So I'm actually going to go away just now and I'm going to get some small pebbles and I'm going to fill this up. Be back in a second. Okay, so I'm back, and what I've managed to do here is I've filled up my can with some small pebbles. You might be lucky and you might have some Play-Doh or something else that you can use just so this dowel doesn't move too much. Now, if we had a lid and we were able to place a small hole in it, we could use that instead to secure it. Now, here I'm just taking the top of what I've done as my top, my jar here, but really this is not essential. So in the event you don't have any pebbles or any Play-Doh, or you're unable to make any Play-Doh, you can just make a lid for your container and put in such a small hole that this will be nice and secure. Here we go. Alright, I'm going to give you a wider angle in a minute and just see. Okay, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing now. So we have our upright, our dowel is nice and secure in our steel can. The only thing we need to do now is to attach our cups to the top here. So how we're going to do that is we've got our push pin and there's just enough space to push this through. Be careful of your fingers, and there's just a teeny totter amount of the pin showing, which we can then pop into the top. So what we're going to do when we get outside is, and it looks like we've got a little bit of a breeze, so hopefully that will help. And what we're going to be able to do is monitor how many times in 10 seconds, we're going to need a stopwatch or use our watch, how many times in 10 seconds this different cup rotates around. Okay, and then we're going to times it by 6 and get the wind speed per minute. Okay, so just as we were about to head outside, it started to rain, so we're actually going to test our anemometer inside using a hairdryer or a fan. Also a good idea just to test that our anemometer works, so just make sure that it spins. Because we've used the dowel and the pen, this one should always spin because the push pen is not connected to either of those. Okay, so we'll just put it on a gentle speed and see how we go. Now at that speed, and I'm fairly close to the anemometer, at that speed it was very difficult to make out the different cups, so it'll actually be quite a bit more difficult to measure the actual wind speed that we've got there. So how many times this different cup faces me in say 10 seconds. So I'm just going to move myself a little bit further away and we'll test it again. So at that speed, I will be able to test how many times this cup came around to face me in 10 seconds. So now let's look at a different option if you don't have a dowel and a pen lid. So all we're going to do is we're going to take these two out, take that out, and I'm going to replace, just in case, if you have a pencil, with a rubber on the end. And we're going to just slightly put the push pen into the rubber. Okay, so I've just put the push pen into the rubber and you'll see that that still spins around. Might have to experiment with that a little bit if it doesn't turn. Okay, let's go and test it out. Okay, so here's our slightly different design. And we'll test this one out. So this option is probably not as sturdy as using the dowel, and we also have a little bit of a height restriction on this one as well. But all the same, you've still got an anemometer. Let's consider the calculations. There are lots of difficult equations out there to work out the wind speed, but we found that this one was the most easiest to use. Well, I hope you had some fun making your anemometers today and measuring your wind speed. Fantastic if we could have been outside, but maybe some other time. Hopefully you'll be able to test that at home at some stage. Thanks for joining me. Ka kite.